This week on Viewpoints.
The problems that existed on social media are not going away. All we're doing is pausing their exposure to it.
Australia has banned kids from social media. Is it a step too far? Then,
neglected, abused, unwanted. Sometimes families, their homes break up for divorce.
Understanding the many reasons why pets end up at shelters. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar. I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
On December 10th, Australia made history as the first country in the world to ban children under 16 from social media. Starting at midnight, platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube were ordered to block minors from their sites or face millions of dollars in fines. Just before the new policy took effect, the Australian government released a staggering statistic. 86% of kids ages 8 to 15 were already on these platforms. That meant hundreds of thousands of young users were booted off immediately. So, what pushed Australia to take such a drastic step?
The reason for its existence is because of many significant incidents that have happened in Australia that has resulted in death of young children. So young people who have suicided as a result of online engagement. So the social media ban was put into place there to try to avoid that from happening in the future.
That's Susan Grantham, a lecturer in communication and researcher at Griffith University in Australia. Her work focuses on the effects of social media on young people, an issue that's been under growing scrutiny in the country. In 2023 alone, Australia's e-Safety Commissioner received tens of thousands of reports involving minors on major platforms. In these cases, connections have been found between social media and teen suicide, specifically involving cyberbullying and content that promotes self-harm or disordered eating. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is urging young people to see the ban as an opportunity to break free from screens and instead spend more time with friends outside or try a new hobby or sport. While leaders are optimistic, experts say that for this legislation to really be successful, it requires cooperation and enforcement from social media companies.
Well, a very important aspect of the legislation is that it does not penalise parents or children. So there's not an onus upon parents to block children's access to these platforms. There's no fines or sanctions or whatever. The onus is on the platforms to be able to verify the ages of their users.
That's Terry Flew, Professor of Digital Communication and Culture at the University of Sydney. Under the new law, platforms are now required to use age verification systems, which can include identity checks or third-party tools. Flew says that some adolescents are using virtual private networks, or VPNs, to get around the new restrictions, while others have started using smaller, more niche platforms not covered by the ban. And for researchers like Grantham, that's where the real concern lies. Instead of pulling children off social media altogether, she warns that the ban may just push them into digital spaces with fewer rules and less oversight.
That's always been my biggest fear with this particular proposal, is that it doesn't stop young people from engaging in social media or engaging in online activity. All it does is push what we already know is happening to a location that we can't monitor as quickly and clearly, particularly if young people go through those VPNs and go to very, very dark places where we don't even know that they're migrating to. That makes it very, very problematic. We've also got to remember that these are teenagers. These are not people that cannot get around technology. They have the means to actually get around technology. And if they want to, they will.
Grantham also worries about what the ban could do to kids who already feel isolated or alone. While she acknowledges the negative effects social media has for mental health and body image, she says there can be positive impacts too. In certain cases, she believes social media can provide connection, community, and support for young people who may not find it elsewhere.
So we've got to remember that Australia is a very unique continent where we are mostly around the coastline, but we then also have towns and regional centres where young people do, exist. They do live, but they're not necessarily living with a bunch of other young people. So we're potentially isolating them from the connections that they've made with others in other parts of Australia or the world. So there's that issue. There's also the isolation of minority groups. So, queer, for instance, is one big one. So young queer kids who have created their community in these online spaces have had to find other ways to keep that connection. And that's very problematic when we're talking 13, 14, 15-year-olds, where they're in quite an emotional, hormonal state anyway. To remove that connection has been a huge concern of ours.
Despite these fears, Grantham is clear about one thing: something had to change. As lawmakers work through the kinks of the new policy, she suggests a new kind of requirement for teens turning 16 who will be returning to social media. Formal education on how to navigate these platforms safely and in healthy doses. Think of it like driver's ed. Before you're handed the keys, you learn the rules of the road.
Social media was the Wild West of the internet, and this has really put on the map that something needed to be done. So that is a huge positive. We've gone in the right direction. We've got young people really now thinking about their online interactions. But at the age of 16, we're then just handing these young people the keys to social media. And I've often said we don't hand young people the keys to a car when they reach the age that they're allowed to have a license. We expect them to get a learner's permit. We expect them to do 100 hours on the road. We expect them to do a test before we deem them safe to be on the road. So we need to treat this very similarly, and we need to ensure that we are embedding education processes into teenagers' lives, so that when they hit 16 and get handed the keys to social media, that they actually are prepared for what they're going to experience, because the problems that existed on social media are not going away. All we're doing is pausing their exposure to it.
Although the ban has been a big change for the country, its future is still uncertain. The law is already facing two big legal challenges making their way through the courts. One has been filed by a major social media platform affected by the ban, and the other comes from two Australian teenagers who argue the legislation infringes on their rights.
It may not survive the Australian courts. So there are two cases being taken against the ban. One is notionally being taken up by two 15-year-olds who claim it infringes their implied right of political communication. Australia doesn't have a Bill of Rights, but there's a legal precedent around what's referred to as an implied right of political communication. It would be an interesting legal question as to whether that applies to under 16s, and that's being supported by a group called the Digital Freedom Project. The second hearing, and the two will be concurrent, is coming from Reddit. And Reddit are saying that they are not a social media platform as outlined in the legislation. This is a more technical issue, I would say, around what constitutes a social media platform. Those matters will go to the federal court and possibly to the High Court.
Regardless of the court's decision, the ban currently has strong public support. Polling shows that between 60 and 80% of respondents agree with the new social media legislation. Although it's worth noting that the respondents in this poll are all above the age of 18. Zooming out, this support is gaining global attention. While countries like the UK, France, and the US have long debated how to regulate social media and early adolescent use, most proposals have focused on parental controls or content moderation. Australia's approach goes much further, raising the question of whether other governments will follow and if these platforms will cooperate or fight back on a larger scale.
Companies are unlikely to make major responses just because changes have happened in Australia. They may make some changes at the margin, and actually all of the companies have committed to acceding to the laws with differing degrees of reluctance. So I think the question would be whether an idea like this takes off in other countries. And there's definitely discussion going on, particularly in Europe, Denmark, France, Norway, the UK being examples, also in countries like New Zealand and Malaysia, about introducing similar laws. So I think the question would be whether companies feel obligated to engage in greater forms of age assurance and age gating of content. And I think for that to happen, it would require these measures to be taken up in more countries than Australia.
To learn more about this topic and our guests, Susan Grantham and Terry Flew, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galante. Our executive producer is Amirah Zaveri. Our studio managers are Jason Dickey and Jay Silvers. I'm Gary Price.
Coming up, animal rescue, care, and control when Viewpoints returns. Laurie Zaleski had a difficult childhood. She and her 3 siblings were raised solely by their mom, Annie, who worked very hard to make ends meet. She remembers her mother taking on several odd jobs to make extra cash. One of these side hustles involved cleaning cages at the local animal shelter. One day, her mom brought home a German shepherd that was going to be euthanized. From that day onwards, the family only continued to grow. The small rental in New Jersey soon became home to dozens of cats, dogs, ducks, geese, even sheep, goats, and pigs. As Zaleski grew older, she dreamt of one day buying her mom a proper farm where these animals could roam free. This dream eventually became a reality. But sadly, Zaleski's mom died of cancer 2 weeks before the sale was complete. With no one to take care of the property, Zaleski decided to run the farm herself and moved all 30 animals into the space. She branded the farm the Funny Farm, the same name her mom used to describe their animal-filled home when she was growing up.
And I said, Mom, why the Funny Farm? Why do you call it that? She said, because it's full of animals and fit for lunatics.
Zaleski is the author of the book Funny Farm, My Unexpected Life with 600 Rescue Animals. Her farm has grown over the years and is now a nonprofit operation that's open to the public. She says animals wind up at Funny Farm for a variety of reasons.
Neglected, abused, unwanted. Sometimes families, their homes break up for divorce. They lose their jobs, or somebody got sickly. The 2 horses that I just took in, the wife's husband wound up having cancer. So she was there taking care of them by herself, and he wasn't able to work, so they had no money. So when I picked up the horses, she said, could you bring some feed to get them in? Because they had none. So how long did they go without food? I mean, they might have had hay and just grass to eat, but it's winter. There's not a lot of that. So we got them quickly.
Sometimes people surrender pets that are blind or have a physical disability. Others may have a serious chronic medical condition that an owner can't afford to treat or handle on their own. Zaleski takes them all. She's rescued several dogs from puppy mills that have a condition called megaesophagus. That's where inbred dogs are born with an esophagus so large they can't properly swallow food. Pet owners don't know this until they bring the animal home and realize they have a very sick puppy. Zaleski says the only way a megaesophagus dog can eat is by backing into a custom-made chair and sitting upright like a human.
And most of them, if you go to the vet, every vet that I've ever spoken to says, put them down. They're going to live 6 months. You might as well just, be humane. And I have had 3 of them. 2 of them I presently have. 1 died already, but he made it to 5 years and they said he would live 6 months. Then the 2 that I have, one now is 4.5 and the other one is 2.5. So already, as long as you just give them a little extra that they need, that extra love and attention and feeding. They have to eat every 3 hours. And it does take a little more money, a little more time. They eat a lot, and hopefully most of it will go down into their stomachs so they don't starve to death, or they regurgitate a lot of their food. So that's why they have to sit up like a human.
The reality is that all animals need adequate time and attention. Zaleski always urges people to make sure all pets are spayed and neutered. And if you're looking to add a pet, please adopt, don't shop.
There are so many pets right now that need to be rescued. There's no need for puppy mills. And even, people say, I have a golden retriever that came to me, and I thought, who would surrender this dog? Somebody purchased this dog. They are out there, these breeds that some people want, specific breeds. They're out there right now. You have to do a little looking, but there's a lot of really great pets out there.
It's true. Even purebreds, like the highly sought-after golden retriever, or designer breeds, like the popular cockapoo, which is a mix between a purebred cocker spaniel and poodle. These popular breeds can and do end up at animal shelters. Animal care and control experts say this often happens when pets are given as gifts.
We do occasionally see animals that someone comes in and says, hey, somebody gave me this for my birthday, and I just can't take care of it. And there's a lot of guilt associated with that, right? Because this is a gift that someone gave them that they're now having to give up. So there's that sense of obligation when you receive this animal as a gift. And that's another reason that it's just really important to have the new pet parent, the new owner, involved in the process from start to finish.
That's Dr. Joshua Fisher, Director of Animal Services for the City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County in North Carolina. He's also the president of the National Animal Care and Control Association. He says that buying pets as gifts is a big topic of conversation among animal welfare professionals.
The idea of giving a pet as a gift without someone knowing is scary, right? Because there isn't necessarily the input of the person who is ultimately going to be responsible for this pet for the rest of its life. So what we encourage is to, have a conversation if you're going to get a gift like that. And one of the best ways to do that is if you know someone is looking for a pet, have them involved in the process, because that's something that really is part of the experience, right? Is coming to choose your new family member.
Fisher suggests that if you know someone who wants a pet and you'd like to gift one to that person, don't buy the actual pet. Buy a gift card from an animal shelter instead. This means you pay for all adoption fees, including vaccinations and neutering. That way, the prospective pet owner gets to visit the shelter and pick the pet of their choice.
The human-animal bond is such that that initial step, that choosing of the pet is really a key part in helping to build that relationship from the start.
Thousands of lonely, isolated people across the U.S. flocked to animal rescue shelters during the pandemic to choose their forever furry friend. But Fisher says animal control officers were also picking up more strays during the pandemic. He suspects that people who had lost their jobs could no longer afford to feed or care for their animals anymore and let them loose. He says it's a little-known fact that short-term financial assistance is available from animal agencies for pet owners who need help. It varies by region, but is definitely worth looking into.
It is less expensive for the agency to provide some short-term support than it is to intake that animal, care for it, provide everything it needs, and then place it up for adoption. We are seeing pet owners in situations where they're having to make a decision between basic veterinary care for their pet, food for their pet, and paying the light bill on time, right? And so generally what we're looking at with those is a short term. They may have lost their job. They may have had to move apartments and their rent is higher, so they're having to readjust things. So we're looking at those short-term issues, those short-term challenges that we can help to provide support to keep pets with their people.
Fisher says public interest in animal welfare has grown in recent years, and so has the number of rescue organizations. If you're looking to adopt, do your research beforehand and make sure you're in a place to commit to the responsibility long term. Find links and resources on pet adoption at viewpointsradio.org. You'll also learn more about our guests, Laurie Zaleski and Dr. Joshua Fisher, as well as all of our past guests. You can find out more about Funny Farm by visiting funnyfarmrescue.org and about the National Animal Care and Control Association by visiting nacanet.org. Laurie Zaleski's book, Funny Farm, My Unexpected Life with 600 Rescue Animals, is available now online and in select bookstores. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Polly Hansen. Our executive producer is Amirah Zaveri. Our studio engineer is Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Viewpoints returns in just a moment.
This is Viewpoints Explained. I'm Ebony McMorris. For many years, clothing rental has been pitched as the future of fashion, but for a long time, the business model struggled to make sense financially. High cost, difficult logistics, and customers who didn't always stick around led to a lot of uncertainty. That's why one company's recent success is getting attention. Nuuly launched in 2019 as a subscription clothing rental service offering 6 items a month for $98. On the surface, it looks similar to earlier platforms like Rent the Runway, but the business model is more efficient. Unlike Rent the Runway, which relies heavily on outside designers, Nuuly sources roughly half of its inventory from its parent company, Urban Outfitters. This covers brands like Anthropologie, Free People, and Urban Outfitters itself. This setup lowers inventory costs and simplifies logistics by keeping order fulfillment largely in-house. The customer experience matters more, too. Nuuly focuses less on niche luxury items and more on wearable premium fashion like cashmere sweaters, trendy athleisure, and modern workwear pieces. And the numbers show this strategy is working. Retail industry reporting shows that Nuuly now has almost 380,000 active subscribers. That's almost double the size of Rent the Runway. Its parent company has also reported that as of 2024, it's been able to turn a profit, something few rental platforms have been able to do. What happens next depends on the customer. Whether Nuuly can hold on to subscribers as styles shift and budgets tighten will decide if it's just a short-term trend or a lasting change in how Americans shop. That's Viewpoints Explained. More in a moment.
Welcome to Culture Crash, where we examine what's new and old in entertainment. Ethan Hawke has been in audiences' lives for decades. Since breaking through with his acting performance in the 1989 film Dead Poets Society, Hawke has made a name for himself in films that run the gamut of genres. He starred in the crime drama Training Day and Richard Linklater's Romantic Before trilogy, as well as horror movies like The Purge and sci-fi films including Gattaca. In 2025, Hawke had himself a heck of a year, gaining awards buzz for his turn in the quietly devastating drama Blue Moon, where Hawke played tragic lyricist Lorenz Hart. But that's not even my favorite Ethan Hawke performance of last year. That's because he also played a down but never out citizen journalist named Lee Raybon in a neo-noir comedy crime show called The Lowdown on FX. Set in Tulsa, Oklahoma, The Lowdown was created by Sterling Harjo, who's following up his widely acclaimed dramedy series Reservation Dogs. In The Lowdown, Hawke's Raybon is a bookseller and writer, digging up dirt on the powerful Washburn family. After one of the Washburns ends up dead, Raybon's life gets turned upside down in a cascade of hijinks and chaos. Funny and touching, but also wildly unpredictable and dramatic, The Lowdown was one of my favorite shows of 2025. The first season is now streaming on Hulu, and FX has officially picked the show up for a season 2. Ethan Hawke has been a leading man and Hollywood staple for decades, but his longevity is only half the story, as he seems to effortlessly melt into his characters, whether that's a depressed lyricist in Blue Moon or a journalist on the hunt of a story in The Lowdown. While many of his contemporaries seem to be content riding off into the sunset, Hawke seems set on continuing to act for many years to come, and that is very good news. I'm Evan Rook.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.